first of all, the federal government does have a role, and we see this. Look, Rhode Island, can you believe this? Rhode Island, northeastern state, until this year, did not have a system to giving equity in funding. The funding decisions on education were made by the state legislature, which meant they were incredibly infected with politics. And I was talking to some people about just how insane it was that depending on who had a larger lobby, they get more funding in this district. And so how did that change? It changed because the Obama administration articulated in order to apply for Race to the Top funds, you had to make certain changes. And so a lot of states reformed their education practices and brought them in lines with the way many of us would think that our nation should have been in the first place. So having a federal government that can point directions and articulate policy that drives change on the local level is very critical, and so I don't want to discount that. I want to echo the brokenness of our politics. I mean, every debate is so disingenuous now, and it doesn't help us look at the facts. Like I'll pick, look, when I came into office, violent crime was my raison d'etre. We were going to drive violent crime down no matter what. And so I know more about criminology and police departments than I ever imagined I would. And I remember when the Heller decision came down, which was the Supreme Court decision that overturned D.C.'s handgun ban. And I turned on the news stations and I heard this tired old false debate, because as a mayor, I look at data. I don't get as emotional or excited as I used to before I start with it as best as possible, not as well as my companion on this panel that probably does, but I saw my friends on my side of the political aisle all saying, oh my gosh, DC is going to go to hell. People are going to be going out there buying guns. It's going to be kind of war. I said, wait a minute. Well, New Jersey already, you can buy guns here. We don't have a DC, and we don't have a ban on handguns. And I looked at the analysis. 4 years as being mayor, not one person was shot with a gun that was bought legally. Not one person. Actually, there was one exception: a woman who was suffering from depression and tragically killed her child and killed herself. And she was a correctional officer that used her side gun. So here we had this national debate that was going on. People on my side were all expending energy and anguish over a reality that wasn't supported by the data. And then on the other side of the aisle, I say we because Mayor Bloomberg called together a coalition and paid for some polling for that coalition. Mayor Bloomberg gave me my best advice ever in politics, which is before you become mayor, become a billionaire.
Not really working out.
No.
Not working out.
I missed that. I wish he had told me that a little earlier before I started running for office. And Bloomberg and our coalition of mayors against illegal guns, left, right, whatever, we polled gun owners in America, and we said, would you support ending some loopholes that are ridiculous? Like there's a loophole that says if Jacob was running a gun shop, which you may do, I don't know, in your spare time, and you were shut down for not doing background checks, he can then take his entire inventory. Now he's been shut down, but he can sell his entire inventory in bulk sale to whoever he wants without doing a background check. I could be a person who has been convicted before of shooting folks. I could have a restraining order out on me from a woman I was abusing. I could be on the terrorist no-fly list. But I could go to any gun show in America without showing ID and buy trunkloads full of weapons. It's the gun show loophole. And this is how the weapons get to Hartford. They go up the iron pipeline from just a few dealers, because we could trace these weapons and know where they come from. And most gun owners said that was a law that should be changed. Almost 90% of gun owners said that law should be changed. But we created this politics in America where we don't talk about data, we don't talk about reality, and even the interests of the majority are not represented. We are driving an American political system that is often serving us as elected officials. And we've created these districts, as you were saying, these districts that now protect me and call for a politics of division, not a politics of unity. And so I second that needs to be changed. Which goes to the greater theme, which is my frustration right now, which is these conflicting ideals in America, this rugged individualism ideal, but also, the hallmark of this nation, those three Latin utterances, e pluribus unum. We are this nation that thinks of barn raisings in the Midwest, rent parties in the Northeast, has a history of collective action for social change. That I now see that one of the biggest impetuses to dramatic change in my city, and we've seen in 4 years, things that were beyond even my imagination, we've gotten accomplished in some areas. Physical changes that just are great to believe, but when I stop and think of how do we do it, it's because of a simple equation my parents gave me when I was growing up. If you do the things that other people don't do, you'll get the results that other people don't get. And what is going on in Newark, and I know in other cities in America, is people are putting aside differences, coming together and creating coalitions that are driving the needle up and creating change. I remember the best criminologist in the country sat down with me and said, you know, you can't hope to lower violent crime more than 10 or 15%. He told me words I hated. He said, Corey, you don't raise people's expectations. The way you're talking is terrible. We're a nation that's been damned by low expectations long enough. And we knew that we couldn't change our police department and manage it better to make change. Heck, I could make a lot of change in the police department. I knew when I found out that we had detectives in our gang task force that were working Monday through Friday 9 to 5. And I don't know about Hartford, but Newark doesn't have gangs that work Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So, you know,
Except for the unionized.
except for the unionized gangs, yes, and they get lots of holidays. So we knew that my job was to manage the police department. We were going to get dramatic change. We achieved 48% reductions in shootings because we brought together great coalitions of people to focus on the problems, and that's something that's critical for the kind of change, is to get back to that sense of mission in our country, which is focused mission, collective action. And the last thing, which I think you sort of touched on, which we got to get out of our system, is to think that we're in this country going to get something for nothing. It's just not going to happen. You know, again, to quote another great African-American leader, in life you don't get everything you pay for, but you must pay for everything that you get. And we have this sense in our country that somehow we're going to get out of this hole that we're in, magically levitating out of it, and it's just not going to happen. We're going to have to make sacrifices. We're going to have to make change. We're going to have to do things differently. And it's very hard in a nation that's grown comfortable with things as they are to really motivate us to change. And that's really, we need leadership. And I'm not talking about elected leadership. I'm talking about clergy leadership, community leadership, faith-based and community-based organizations. And that's something that's going to take, frankly, politicians telling the truth. And I'll finish it this way. It's like telling the truth about our economy is very hard in this country. It really is. I mean, you know, I get booed sometimes when I tell truths that, you know, we in New Jersey, and I'm pretty sure Connecticut's the same way, have a unfunded pension liability that's unsustainable. And so how are you going to get this to fix? There's really only two options you have in government, okay? It's increase revenue or cut expenses. It's not that complicated. But I'm now going through, you know, I've lost over $100 million of my budget, and I have conversations with people and I say, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to raise taxes 40% and keep everything as it is? Or do you want to cut services? And these are the things we have to have conversations about. I have a coalition. I gave an interview to Esquire magazine today about this growing coalition of politicians from both parties. They're just tired. We're sick and tired of the partisan conversations. And we really think that if we had a pro-growth economy, looking at the issues that you're talking about, Jacob, about what are the sensible things. This may not be the kind of things that get folks excited to join the Tea Party movement. We're not going to be yelling rhetorical things out there and screaming at people. And you know, because for me, come on, King was so enlightened. The challenge today is not the vitriolic words or violent actions of bad people. It's the silence and inaction of the good people. And if we could just get a bunch of good people to talk about our economy together, there actually are a lot of obvious things that we really need to do, or we're going to be left behind.